Welcome back, everybody, to the Whiskey Jedi podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Love having you guys here. Love that I'm getting back to doing this show. It's been a few weeks, but I love doing this show. I love getting a chance to talk anything really in the world that I love talking about, especially when I have guests on. We bring up topics and talk about things that they love to talk about. And tonight's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a ton of fun. Very open Q&A, ask us anything type of show. So feel free to ask myself and my guest anything that you would like. Obviously, he's a little bit of a Star Wars expert, but he's also a massive baseball fan like I am. But he also has a movie podcast that I'm sure that we will get into as well. So let's just get the ball rolling. Let's go and bring him on. Super excited to get to talk to him once again. He is a co-host over on the Resistance broadcast, a very popular Star Wars show. He is Mr. John Hoey. What's up, man?
Jake, good to see you. I regret waving. That's such a...
No, you're good. You're good.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me. And we obviously, many people who follow a certain point of view know that we were a part of a house for Schmodown Spectacular a few seasons ago.
Yes.
And we got to enjoy some time together, hang out for the weekend. And so we've had some good times, but I'm excited to get to talk to you after all of this and everything that's been happening with Star Wars and baseball coming up, and ask how everything is going.
Yeah, things are going well. I'm really excited about Celebration. We're heading to London for that. It's gonna be my first time in Europe, actually. So
that's awesome.
It's a little nerve-wracking because just going to Celebration alone can be nerve-wracking, but then add to the fact that, you know, passport, a different kind of outlet plug I got to buy, you know, this weird stuff you got to do.
Yes.
And yeah, baseball, like it's spring training's happening and it still feels like it's winter. It feels like it's not real yet.
100%.
But I don't know if you've caught my Yankees are already dropping like flies, man. They're all getting hurt.
Your one off season sign has gotten hurt.
Oh God. Yeah. And then Harrison Bader got hurt today.
Yeah.
And Nestor Cortez has like a bad groin or something. It's just like, guys, just take it easy.
I mean, look, it's a bummer, obviously, but it's not as bad as being an A's fan, which is what
I was gonna say. Yeah, what's going on with you guys, man? You guys going to Vegas or something?
I think we are going to go to Vegas. I've been actually wishing and dreaming for the past couple of years that we'd go to Vegas. It just Oakland. I love Oakland to death. I love having them in my backyard, essentially. But the city does not support sport teams.
True.
The Warriors left. The Raiders left. It's just time for the A's to leave as well. So
yeah, are you going to stick with them?
100%.
That a boy.
Yeah, always. And I'll actually probably end up becoming a Vegas Knights fan because of it. Just become all Vegas. So
all right,
just make it one big city.
Raiders,
the Raiders, the Knights, and the A's. It just makes sense that way. Although my Kings are here in Sacramento, so I can't leave my Kings. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Right on. I used to be I grew up on Long Island, so I spent like my first 11 years of my life in New York, and then moved to Connecticut. And I should have been, like a Knicks fan or something, but I just got swept up in the Jordan mania, and I became a Bulls fan when I was a little kid, just like all little kids were that time. And so then like when people bring up the LeBron Jordan stuff, I'm just like, it's Jordan. What are you talking about? And I feel like an old man when I say that, but hey, what are you gonna do?
I mean, I love LeBron, but I don't think there's a conversation there in my eyes.
He annoys me. I don't know what it is. The guy bothers me. His ego. I don't know. Something about LeBron annoys me. I don't know.
It's fair. That is fair. All right. Well, before we get into questions and Star Wars and maybe a little more baseball and of course movies, because I want to talk about your movie podcast as well, because you do have a movie podcast outside of the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
One half of this show is that we bring a drink on the channel. I focus on bourbon. That's kind of my thing. Whiskey. I usually review some stuff. I brought back on, which I had a number of episodes ago. It was Willet Bourbon.
Right.
Very, very good. I have not touched it in a while. Very interesting looking glass.
I like that.
Very cool looking bourbon. But John, what did you bring on tonight?
All right. So I'm not a connoisseur like you, but my birthday in October, my wife threw me a party. And almost everybody brought a bottle of whiskey or bourbon for me. And I don't drink the hard stuff that often. Every once in a while, I'll tear it up. But this is Hirsch. I don't know if you know what this is.
I do. I've wanted to try that for so long.
I'm about to try for the first time ever.
Oh man, I'm so jealous right now. I'm so jealous.
I think it's like $40 or something like that. And it's straight bourbon whiskey. Let's see, 92 proof. Ooh, all right.
I'm so jealous.
Uh,
It's all over my Instagram. It just
Is it?
promotes itself. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me
Yeah.
smell. All right. And I brought a glass. I don't know if you do ice or not, so I'm gonna follow your lead here.
I do back and forth. I have glass. I have an ice right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'll pop a couple in my whiskey glass.
Yep.
All right. So you're poured already. So I gotta get going.
I'm poured. I'm
All
ready
right.
to go.
All right. Cool. I'll get some ice. Is that a Death Star ice cube?
Yeah, it is.
That's the best. I want that.
I had to pop it out for this show specifically. I even have my my R2D2 glass.
Oh,
You can see right there. I got specific stuff for just the show.
Okay.
So yeah, I had to pop it out for this one.
All right. Well, are we allowed to
Cheers,
drink
buddy.
that? Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm interested in the reaction.
Smooth.
All right.
No weird face. Nothing.
No, all right. That's good. That's good. That's a good sign. All right.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, Hirsch.
Okay, well, chat, everyone watching, if you guys have questions for us, again, this is a Q&A, ask us anything type of show. We're just going to be hanging out. Towards the end of the show, I do have some rapid fire questions to ask John, which I'm super excited to get to. Very interesting questions. They're not your typical type of Star Wars questions. We'll get to those a little bit later on the show. So please leave your comments in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll get to those. But before, as those are rolling in, John, I just want to ask you simply, how are you feeling with the state of Star Wars currently? Obviously, we have The Mandalorian. We have Bad Batch. The movie stuff is kind of like in a weird place.
Yeah.
Celebration is coming, though, so it could change. How are you? Where's your mindset at with Star Wars right now?
We try to do this thing every literal season where we do the state of Star Wars on TRB. And the last one we did in the fall, I was very critical. Respectfully, I don't do hate or anything like that. But then this one we just did for winter, I think it was in January or February, I was super positive. And I think that stemmed from I have a feeling that they're finally figuring it out with the movie side of things.
Me too.
Because you saw that report from Variety where they're like, all right, this one's not happening, this one's not happening. And I was kind of like, that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
Because Feige's doing his thing, and it seemed like Rogue Squadron was in trouble. And I don't know how you feel about about this whole thing, but when you want to start over and start a new era, especially after the Skywalker saga, and they're talking about doing stuff after Episode 9, you don't want it to be messy again, the way all the productions of the prior movies have been.
100%.
Because I saw this reel from Christian Harloff, and he's he just rapid fire listed all the directors that were just jettisoned. And I was I almost forgot how many people were supposed to make Star Wars.
So many people.
So then I was thinking maybe they finally got this right and they're taking their time and actually planning it out. And that got me really excited because as much as I love all the Disney Plus series, I loved Obi-Wan. I don't care what anybody says. And that got better each episode, especially that last duel. I think we got to talk about that.
I agree with you.
Andor, it took me a while to get into it, but I knew I was going to like it, and I did. And then, of course, Mando is the Elvis of Star Wars. And I even though I love all that stuff, I feel like Star Wars, it started as a movie franchise. We need it in theaters. And I think it's finally going to come back, and I think it's going to come back the right way. So I've been very positive on the state of Star Wars. And I feel like fans have been a little better than they have been the past couple of years. People rally around stuff like Andor and Mando for the most part. I've stepped back from social media a little bit, not too much. I have to be on there. But going to things like, Celebration and just even everyone out there, when we did the Schmodown stuff, and all the Star Wars people, those vibes, I try to just keep catching on to. And it just, all that stuff together and just putting this stuff in perspective, this is entertainment. This isn't life or death.
Yeah.
We love it because we're nerds and we love it. But so all that collectively together just has me feeling good about the state of Star Wars moving forward.
I 100% agree with everything you just said. I I was very much looking forward to Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
I'm a ship guy. I love pilots and just like that aspect of anything. I just am such a fan of. But I also understand the move and the direction of changing where they are going. And it makes sense because, like you said, you kind of want a little bit of a fresh palette if you are heading in a new direction.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to see those movies, if they have a plan and the plan includes to not include those, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I am absolutely, because what was the entire conversation during those 4 years that we saw the sequel trilogy plus the spinoffs? Where was the plan? Like, where is all this going? Different directors with different ideas and different stories and just like different threads and all this stuff. As long as they have a plan, I am totally okay with the direction that they go. And so I'm happy that, they are making the decisions to step back on some movies that have kind of just been sitting there. And it feels right now, I feel much better than I have over the last 2 years. Like the last 2 years has felt very weird because as much as I love television shows, just like you, Star Wars is a big screen experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question about it. I love it on the big screen more than anything. And so not having that has been so weird and not even getting like news or anything about it.
Right.
So now that we're kind of headed in that direction, it feels much, much better.
Yeah, it does. And I don't know what the plan is with Taika and that stuff because I have some. I really like Taika Waititi, and I love how entertaining he is. And I liked what he had to say about Star Wars during the gallery series of The Mandalorian, where I think he said like it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it has heart or something like that. And he seems to know how to walk that line. Now, we haven't seen him do his own Star Wars. He directed Favreau's Star Wars, which I enjoyed. And he's back as the voice and doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the latest Thor, I didn't see it, but I know it got hammered by people. Did you see it?
I didn't like it.
Oh, really? Okay. And you like a lot of the Marvel stuff. You have Gabby doing rewatches or the
I like a lot of the Marvel stuff. I like pretty much everything Taika except for Love and Thunder.
Oh, okay. So does that make you hesitant about him in Star Wars? Or are you like, I still have
a little bit, but I'll revert right back to Ragnarok, which I think is one of the best MCU
I like
movies.
that one. Yeah, that was good.
And it's in line with what you were talking about of Taika directing Favreau Star Wars. At that point, Taika was kind of directing Feige Marvel. And I have a feeling that whoever's in charge or whoever will be pulling decisions at Lucasfilm will be like, okay, Taika, you can write a movie, but you can't go full weird like you do sometimes. Like you can't go Jojo Rabbit, right? Like you can't go out there. Like you have to kind of stay in this Star Wars state of mind.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, I think that he would be very good for Star Wars because he's so creative.
Yeah.
And he's willing to take chances when a lot of people wouldn't.
That's true.
I don't know if you saw, but he also wants to star in it.
Yeah.
Which, I'm okay with because he started multiple projects of his own, like Jojo Rabbit, for example. He starred as a satire version of Hitler, which everyone was okay with.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that this would be okay after something like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then what was that show he did where he plays a vampire and he was
oh my God.
Things We Do in the Dark or something like that. I forget.
What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah. So he likes to feature in his own work, which is cool. So we'll see. I mean, it seems like according to the trades anyway that his thing's still in the mix. I thought it was toast. Yeah.
So I thought they were going to say all were done. That's what.
So did I. And then there's the Lindelof thing. So who knows what's going on with that? But I think you and I seem to be on the same page. As in, I think there is an appetite from a lot of fans. And I don't know if it's like fatigue from the stagecraft volume stuff, and they want to get back to the big scale location type stuff. But which Andor did. But I think there's already the appetite back for I want to go to my movie theater and see Star Wars. Especially after the pandemic and everything. And Top Gun came out last year, and I saw it the first night I was in Anaheim for Celebration, and I'm like, that for some reason I'm sitting there watching that movie and just like loving it, and I'm thinking like, I want to feel this way watching a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be able to go to a movie theater and experience just a big spectacle movie again. And I know we get that with some stuff like Marvel, but Marvel's been so repetitive and like it's just such on a like the amount of stuff that they put out, it's hard to feel that way every time it comes out. With Star Wars, like I'll never forget that experience of watching The Force Awakens and Rogue One for the first time. Like after so many years of not having Star Wars, there's only one franchise in my mind that can do that. Well, maybe two. You throw Star Wars and Lord of the Rings in there because we haven't had Lord of the Rings in so long.
Which might be coming back or something?
Which might be coming back. Interesting. But Star Wars takes the cake no matter what. Like,
it's
man. Number one, like that experience, there's nothing like it for sure.
Yeah, I agree, man. Absolutely.
All right, let's get to a couple questions here. Kind of change of pace, but Brandon Buckingham, Mr. Buck himself, he asked us, so I know you're both baseball fans, opinion on the pitch clock.
Oh, you go first. Because you're a catcher, so
I do not like it whatsoever.
I didn't think you would.
I don't like it whatsoever, and I get they're trying to, obviously speed up the game.
Mm-hmm.
I've never, and maybe it's because I'm a biased baseball fan, I've never had a problem with the length of games, and I don't think there's ever been an issue specifically with pitchers and the amount of time they take up on the mound, because every pitcher is different from each other.
Right.
I don't like it. Like having that clock in the background of every game that we watch now is going to be extremely aggravating.
I kind of agree with you. And I used to pitch, like I didn't pitch after high school. So I just pitched through varsity. And then I actually didn't play my senior year. I pulled a Days of Confused and I was like, I'm going to go hang with my friends. But I always loved the romance of a baseball game and that it had its own cadence by the performers and not by a clock. Like you can't run out the clock in a baseball game. And that was the best part. You could theoretically be down by 10 runs with 1 out to go and miraculously do something. You're never out of it. I know a lot of people head to the cars at that point if they're in the stadium, but so I'm also like not a fan of it. I think there's way better ways that they could cut down if they wanted to. I mean, they'll never do it, but commercial breaks are very long. Like if you're ever like at a baseball game and you're just like, if you don't have to go to the bathroom or get a beer or whatever, you're just sitting there like, man, this is pretty long.
Yeah.
And then the replays, they take 8 minutes. It's just like, how come in tennis they could just be like, what was it? Bang. All right. He was safe. He's out, So I think there are other ways they could do it. So I'm still against it, but I know there's nothing I could do about it right now. I'm more pissed off about them keeping the stupid free runner on second thing in the extra.
Oh, it's called. It was. Well, I don't know if it was called in the big leagues, but because I coached for a long time, and in travel ball they call it the international rule, is what they called it. So in extra innings in travel baseball, which I coached high school kids, in tournament ball, this like 10th inning, you immediately go to international rules. Wow. So you put a person on second base. You choose what you want to do. So in travel, that's where it's different. You get to choose how you kind of set it up. In the big leagues, it's a little bit different. That to me is ruining baseball. Like it's like this is the professional baseball league in the world, and that's what you're doing.
It's like wiffle ball.
Yeah.
And tell me how you feel about this. My thought on it is I think it gives the advantage then to the away team at that point because they start off with a guy in second. If that guy gets in, then there's way more pressure on the home team at that point. So
every time.
I haven't talked to a lot of people who like think that way, but to me, I just feel like that's a given. Like think about if it was just a regular extra inning game and they lead off with a double. If you're like, you're watching the A's game and they're playing Houston and Altuve hits a double, you're like, oh crap.
Well, and so I don't know. Obviously, like major leagues is a lot different than younger kids, and the word small ball don't really exist in the MLB anymore.
Yeah,
but now it might change because what would happen in travel baseball is you'd get a guy in second, you have no outs, you'd bunt the guy over, and then you hit him in every time.
Like fly.
It's a given run every single time.
Yeah.
And if you have a good pitcher on the mound, more than likely one of those teams isn't going to score. Yeah. But if you just play small ball, there's a given run every single time. It doesn't feel like professional baseball at that point.
It doesn't, man. It doesn't. And I know that it's proven that it speeds up the games and it helps them if they have a getaway game, they need to travel. And I get all that because they are human beings and all that. But, it's almost like I'm more mad about that than the pitch clock. But I have a feeling once I watch these games and there's a pitch clock and Garrett Cole gets nabbed because he starts his windup with 7 seconds. and they get, it's against the
Yeah.
Astros or something, I'm gonna throw my remote at my TV. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So,
what I'm also frustrated about is, and I don't know if you saw this, but the very first day of spring training, one of the games ended on an umpire calling a strike.
I couldn't believe it.
Like that's what we're getting to in Major League Baseball. Is if they're running down the clock, or if the batter's not in the box the entire time, they're calling a strike on players.
Can you imagine the cojones on an umpire if that's game 4 of a World Series?
Yeah, like, and say it's like one of the most popular players in baseball up. He has a chance to a magical moment in baseball, and you're calling a strike on that player.
Like Ohtani, bases loaded.
For not doing anything.
No. It's ridiculous.
It's absurd. I'm very interested in seeing how it plays out. Baseball is going to be very different this year because they changed so many rules. The pitch clock, the strike, the shift. Like, there's so many new rules that are added to a full season of baseball. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation during the season, but also after the season on what's going to happen. We'll see.
Did you see the shift they do for Joey Gallo now?
Yeah.
You saw that?
Yeah.
They just get rid of left field.
Yep. It's gone.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I would not be surprised if most teams do that for a lot of players. Like Cody Bellinger, you can probably do the same thing for him. He hardly ever hits the ball out there.
Yeah. So. And he's in Chicago now. Who knows? He may have a little renaissance in him.
Yeah. I do think that a new place is going to give him a lot of good luck.
I think it could. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to Star Wars here. Buck has another question, but kind of in the same vein here. Who in the Star Wars universe would make the best baseball player?
Oh, man.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Great question.
I went on a podcast recently, and we did a baseball lineup, and so I did a full whole lineup on it, and it's tough to say, but just because you're a catcher, my pick for catcher was General Grievous because he has 4 arms and there's just no pass balls, and he could probably throw everyone out.
That's good.
I don't know if he's the best, but just because you're a catcher, I figured I'd throw that at you and see what you thought.
No, I mean that it totally makes sense. I think he'd be really good at catching for no pass balls. Also, he can probably throw the ball a lot harder than any other person because he is robotic, which would also make him a really good pitcher too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's a very interesting question. There's so many people in Star Wars. Like, okay, the question I have, Buck, is the Force being used here? Like not even just like physically being used, but if they're tapped into the Force, does that make them better? If that's the case, I'm going with someone like Anakin because he's so strong in the Force, right?
Yeah.
Like
Anakin is short, batting 4th.
Yeah.
But is the Force considered like steroids?
Oh my God. Could you imagine? Like,
was Barry Bonds using the Force in 2001?
Could you imagine like Anakin getting banned 62 games for using the Force?
He just kills everybody. And that's how he turns into Darth Vader, because he got banned in baseball.
Yeah. I definitely think going something like the alien route, though, I bet you Chewie could be one hell of a power hitter. Put him in the 4 spot and just let him smash some balls.
And his bat is a droid's arm.
There you go. Even better. Yeah, C-3PO's arm. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
There's definitely a lot. There's definitely a lot. Buck says would have to have Force-enabled teams versus Force-enabled teams and non-Force-enabled teams versus non-Force teams.
Oh, diplomatic.
That makes sense.
I like that.
That makes sense. So Jedi versus Jedi, essentially, and then everybody else versus everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it with Anakin. I think he'd be first overall pick in like a fantasy draft.
Yeah, it makes sense. He's clearly the most powerful. So
yeah, and sometimes a clubhouse needs an attitude guy too. You know,
that's true. You need a little spunk in the clubhouse sometimes.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. All right, Ryan said he commented when we were talking about Rogue Squadron. Just want to bring this up. He said, "I was so excited for Rogue Squadron, but after Maverick, I don't know what they could do that would immediately be considered derivative."
That's a good point. Yeah, what's up, Ryan? Ryan's a good dude. Yeah, that's. I mean, James said that once on the podcast. He's like, I just want to throw this out there. He's like, do you guys think Rogue Squadron's not going to happen because of Maverick? And I was like, oh man,
very possible that
they had everything lined up and they thought they were had something solid, and then they saw that movie and they're like, this is going to look like weak.
Yeah.
compared to that. I don't know. I am still like you, a little bit bummed about Rogue Squadron mainly because I feel like Patty Jenkins, like my whole thing with Star Wars is I love when people want to work on Star Wars and they're a fan of it. And she seemed like it was a really personal story for her because her father or grandfather was like a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone has that personal attachment, you feel like they're going to give their all to it. And I think she's been getting a bad rap because I mean I didn't like that last Wonder Woman movie, but I think she still deserved an opportunity. But it seems like it's dead in the water. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a conversation to be had about whether or not it would have been compared. Obviously, like you can change stories, and when I think of Rogue Squadron, especially when it came to like the video games, and I know that it was a lot of flying aspects, but like it was all about the crew. Like it wasn't about the flying. It's a rogue squadron of like these interesting rebellion / resistant pilots, typically one in each kind of ship who come from different backgrounds and have to come together. Very much like the Bad Batch of pilots is kind of what you
I like
can
that.
compare them
Yeah.
as. So there was definitely ways, but I would not be surprised if Disney looked at it and was like, yeah, might not be a good idea right now. Maybe give it a few years, a little bit of time, and maybe we'll revisit it. But I think that with Maverick and kind of what it did, it kind of makes sense to push it back for now. But hopefully one day we do get to see an iteration of it because I know that those books specifically were so popular.
Yep.
And it has a very big fan base. So
yeah. And like you said, those video games any video game that involves using a ship or flying or even that old N64 pod racer game I loved, just
don't even get me started on pod racing. Oh my God.
And that's pure George Lucas. He was all about, he made Star Wars because he wanted drag racing in space. Like we talk about themes and lore and stuff, but the guy was like, he was like a smarter Ricky Bobby. He was like, I just want to go fast. That's who George Lucas was. Man.
I love it. I've said it on this show probably like 2 or 3 times. I think I did a whole episode on it. But I have this idea for pod racing to make it a TV series, and one episode is focused on one race where you're going around the galaxy, and there's different tracks on different planets. Like
I love
why
it.
not?
Yes. Yeah.
You kind of like infuse NASCAR with Tron. You throw in the pod racing a little bit, and you have yourself a banger of a Star Wars TV show.
Yeah, because even in Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon talked about how he saw pod racing on Malastare or something like that. By the way, I'm so glad I don't have to remember all the little details.
Yeah, no more trivia for you.
I'm so glad I'm stupid again. It feels good.
You can sit back and just enjoy.
Yeah, I'm like, what is that thing called again? I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does not matter anymore. Quick, here we go. Sean Soley is finally here. Thank you, Sean, so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, what's up, buddy?
Okay, I'm here. You can start the show. Thank you, Sean. He's been on the Whiskey Jedi plenty of times. He's gonna be back on it very, very soon.
It's on brand for Sean.
100%. It's on brand. 100%. Sean, if you have a question, leave it in the chat. Thank you.
Love you, buddy.
All right, Pablo's got a question for us. Thoughts on Star Wars eventually making the High Republic the main storyline for the movies? Interesting. I feel like you got an opinion about this one, John.
I do. So this is an unpopular opinion, but I have always had a hard time with Star Wars canon books. I have a hard time reading Star Wars fiction. It doesn't capture my attention the way that the visual aspect of Star Wars is. Because like we said, it started as a movie franchise. It started as a visual presentation. And it doesn't mean I don't think they're great. And there's some of them that I know I have to follow up on the stories and stuff to make sure I'm connecting the dots and that sort of thing. But I remember Matt Martin and a few people at Lucasfilm saying that they'll never copy an existing iteration in a different medium. So High Republic is already so loaded with all these stories.
Yep.
I think the closest we get to that is the Acolyte, which is going to be the very end of High Republic.
Yep.
And I'm down with that because that looks really cool. Leslie Headland, I liked Russian Doll. So I think that's going to be really cool. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that because also I don't know how much reach the High Republic has had with the general audience of Star Wars. Like there's people who are going to be at those panels and buy all the books and they love the High Republic. But until Disney, especially with what Bob Iger just said recently about we're going to be careful about what we do now, I think they would need to get a read on how fans would catch on to that. And I don't know if fans because I love Jedi. I'm wearing a shirt. I am all the Jedi, but Jedi are boring, dude. Like the prequels were missing a Han Solo type, a roughneck, I don't care attitude. They were all sort of a little stuffy. It's like they're like priests, the Jedi. They're like warrior priests, and I just don't know if like the high elite society version of Jedi without all these dark side using baddies is the way to go. I could be totally wrong, and I probably love it if they did it. That's just where I'm leaning. So I want to know what you think. It's probably the exact opposite.
I'm not the exact opposite, but I definitely think that there's spaces that you could tell a High Republic story without it feeling too familiar. And because like when you look at the High Republic and you look at, because we kind of know what happens, right? At some point, there's an absolute catastrophe and it all just ends.
Yeah.
That's very similar to what happened in the prequels. So the storyline, even though that the beats are different and there's different characters and it's a very different time, it still ends the same way.
Yeah.
So maybe not the main storyline, but I wouldn't mind a one-off movie that focuses on a master and a Padawan who goes on an adventure or something else in that era that could be told in one movie. I don't know about a trilogy because it could be hard. You know, like you said, not very many people are connected to it right now. Maybe over time that changes. But if like we were to say within the next 5 years, you know, if High Republic was to be the main storyline in Star Wars, I would say no. But I would not be surprised is if they try to do one movie, especially after we see The Acolyte, and if that gets very, very high praise, which I kind of expect it to like be very popular. That could kind of catapult Lucasfilm into rethinking like, okay, well, maybe that is a direction we go. Maybe there is a lot there that we could do that is different and unique from what we've told before. And people clearly like something that's not connected to previous stuff. So after The Acolyte, conversations could totally change. But right now, main storyline's tough to say with the High Republic because it also is still going on. Like, it's only in the second, I think they're calling it the second chapter or the second phase of it all.
Phase,
still very new in Star Wars.
Yeah, that's really true. And they could reverse engineer it where Star Wars was usually live action, then we do an animated thing based on that, then books. Now, if they start with books, they're wrapping up, it feels like, the whole clone animated sagas with Bad Batch, which has been good. People have slammed this season a little bit, but I've enjoyed.
Great.
I thought this last episode was so heavy.
Yes.
So if they reverse engineer it and then say, well, what are we going to do with our next chunk of animated Star Wars? What if it is High Republic? And then, you know, maybe I'd watch that. And then you get people like me, and then you get general fans and test the waters there and see how that does. And then say, we got something here. There's something going on here that people can really draw to. And then maybe get some live action, maybe a series, maybe like do like the Game of Thrones type thing, like an HBO style thing with High Republic. Because it feels sort of medieval in terms of its styling and feel. And then, get us a movie from that point. So maybe they're trying to reverse engineer it, start with books and go the exact opposite way they used to do it.
I mean, look, if you follow me on any social media, you know that I'm absolutely obsessed with Vikings. And the villains of the High Republic are space Vikings. So, like, I would absolutely love to see these stories told. Do I think it has a place in Star Wars right now? Probably not. Like, it's very tough right now where we are in Star Wars because The Mandalorian is the single most popular thing going on in the universe. It is set after the original trilogy, right? We have the Bad Batch that's set in between 3 and 4. We haven't touched anything before episode 1. It is such a new area for not just Star Wars fans, but also people who don't pay attention to the things that we do. Like, sometimes we forget that we're so ingrained in this stuff that we forget what your average moviegoer or TV watcher would feel about seeing something like that on the screen.
That's a good point.
So it might not be the right time to tell that story, but I definitely think that there will be a time at some point. I just think that there's so many stories that you can tell right now that, and I'll go back to the one that I constantly talk about, but the one story that I would love to see told is something like Dr. Aphra, which is so different in Star Wars, right? It's kind of like the Indiana Jones of Star Wars, but also very different. It's so different and kind of darker from what we expect from Star Wars. She's such a unique character, operates in such an interesting world. Like there's so many different ways you can tell Star Wars that isn't relevant to what we've seen over just the last 5 years. That isn't the High Republic, although I would like to see it one day. So
Yeah, I think you have a good point there. I mean, there's no way they will start that as the new era of Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
They're probably going to do something that they know, or at least they have a good feeling, will catch most fans. But yeah, I agree. Star Wars is not ending anytime soon, hopefully, right? So, like you're saying, it doesn't have to be soon. Like maybe 10 years, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the books and comics are finished by that point, and there's a story, and then someone else can step in that has a creative mind and like, I want to take that character, but put them in a moment in time that we have not seen yet.
That's cool. Yeah.
Kind of picking off that a little bit, because if they don't pick off from the High Republic, or we know that Lindelof's movie is kind of the most concrete of the bunch right now. Anyway, what would you like to see, or what era of Star Wars would you like to see if we are the first movie to come back for Star Wars? Where would you like this movie to be set?
I would either like to go so far back that you don't have to worry about it wedging up against something.
Yeah.
Or go after episode 9, and it doesn't necessarily have to be right after episode 9, and just look at that wide open canvas and say, you're going to create this story. You don't have to worry about story group telling you, well, you can't do that. You can't do that because this person goes here.
Yeah.
Like that's tough. These like the Andor and the stuff they're trying to wedge in between things.
Yeah.
And then that also it messes up continuity in other spaces. And if you give someone a wide open landscape, we haven't touched this. It's wide open pastures. That really interests me and excites me because the sky's the limit.
I agree. I 100% agree. And like we have this conversation all the time of why make the universe smaller, right? Like we have everything in between 1 and 9, and it's great. And there's obviously a lot of time, but there's also so much time before 1 and endless time after 9 that you can tell stories in. And also, when you think of it, the two directors that are currently attached to movies, Damon Lindelof and Taika Waititi, what are they best known for? Being creative, being different, right? Not really having boundaries. Lindelof doing the Watchmen series on HBO, and Taika having enough on his resume to be like, yeah, that's one of the most unique, crazy guys on the planet. Yeah. Don't give them something that they have to abide by. Let them kind of live out their Star Wars dreams of telling a story that they want to tell.
Yeah, and Lindelof was the showrunner for Lost, and that was one of the.
I always forget that that's the case, and I loved Lost. And I loved
Lost.
Me
too. And maybe bring back Michael Giacchino.
Oh, dude, it would be so good. Oh, I mean, he did, and maybe they do a show one point, but Giacchino just directed a Marvel thing, which was incredible. He did Werewolf by Night, which was incredible. I'm not saying he needs to direct a movie, but like get him involved in some aspect and let him do some things because he's good at what he does, just clearly good.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll get those questions in. We have a little bit left until I get to some rapid fire questions for John. Well, John, I mean, look, you guys do the Resistance broadcast, and you guys are talking Star Wars on a weekly basis, but you also do another show that is just strictly about movies, which I love. I listen to it. I love what you guys do with that show. If nobody knows here watching, can you kind of break it down for them, and then maybe some movies that may be coming that we might be seeing?
Yeah. So the podcast is called Just Like the Movies, which I named after the chorus line in the song "Movies" by Alien Ant Farm. Which if you haven't seen that music video, it is like, you want to talk about nostalgia. Like they do the Ghostbusters, they do all that stuff, and it's them in a movie theater, so we named it that, and it's just me and my friend Mike, who I've known for 22 years, and he lives in Ohio, and we don't get to see each other often, and it was right in the heart of the pandemic. We're talking like fall 2020, and we had always, anytime we got a chance to see each other, we would just talk about movies like at the bar over drinks and stuff, and I was like, let's just hit record on that. And we were like, well, what do we want to talk about? And we're like, let's just talk about the stuff we loved before we had bills and before we had stress and before we worried about going to the doctor and stuff. When we were like young and carefree. And that's sort of what we're trying to tap into. So mostly it's 80s movies, 90s movies, early 2000s. And we don't care so much. I mean, we definitely go for the big ones to try to, get people interested. Like, we do Jaws, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park and stuff like that. We don't do Star Wars. That podcast is my palate cleanser.
Yeah.
So that when I go back to talking about Star Wars, I still like talking about Star Wars. But that's essentially what it is. Just and it's way different from TRB. TRB, we try to make it family friendly because, like, just looking at our live shows that we did for TRB, like we had 6-year-olds in the audience and 70-year-olds in the audience, and we want to make sure that people can bring their kids, because to me, Star Wars is about generations and families and stuff like that. But just like the movies, like truck driver mouth, like we let it rip, and it's just like a way different type of podcast. And we just did the first, we did Scream, which a movie I loved when it first came out. It like changed how I thought about horror movies and movies in general. It was so accessible and fun. So we did that, and that was such a good time. And next up, we're doing Bourne Identity.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah. So, and I haven't seen that movie in like 10 years, man.
It's so good. It is so good.
And that changed the game in terms of how like fight scenes are filmed 100%. And stuff. So
I still always say that the Bourne Ultimatum is one of the greatest action movies ever made.
Very, very good. Yes.
That's exciting. So back to the Scream thing for a second. Scream is my favorite horror franchise.
Me too.
Like I don't care for like the hardcore horror when it comes to like Freddy or Jason or any of that type of stuff.
Same.
I like the kind of just campiness to what Scream brings.
Mm-hmm.
I like what Scream 5 did just a few years ago. I'm actually going to see Scream 6 tomorrow with Gabby.
Oh, nice.
We're going to go see that tomorw. So yeah, no, look, your guys' conversations are great.
Thanks, man.
I remember the Raiders of the Lost Ark episode because I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. You guys do some really, really good stuff. So anybody watching who has not checked it out, I definitely recommend. It is such a fun kind of, honestly, palate cleanser to what a lot of movie podcasts do.
Just really?
You guys do have a lot of fun. Like, and it feels like you're two buddies talking at a bar. Like that's what it really feels like.
I appreciate that, because I think sometimes when we're on there, we're like, oh yeah, we're recording, but then like we get into the pocket and it's like we forget that we're recording. And I know that because of the POV crew, and you guys are so tight.
Yeah.
And you need that chemistry, because you can't fake it. And so I appreciate you saying that. So yeah, for anyone who's interested, it's called Just Like the Movies. It's on just audio. You don't want to see our faces. So Just Like the Movies on your favorite podcast app, and we let it rip. It's no censorship, and we talk about all the movies we loved growing up, and we do some recent ones. Like we did The Town, which was one of my favorite episodes because I freaking love that movie.
That movie's incredible.
Yeah. And so Mike wasn't the biggest fan, but after talking about it, he's like, now I kind of like realize I like that movie more than I did before.
The good thing about talking about movies is when like you come out of a theater or you watch it at home, you're like, yeah, whatever. But then you get to talking about it, you're like, oh, wait a second, I actually do like this movie a lot more than I realized I did.
Yeah. And I felt that way about Fight Club, because I always liked Fight Club, and Mike picked it, and he freaking loves Fight Club.
It's my number 4 movie of all time.
See, dude, that's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm talking about. And like I was telling Mike, like Scream's in my top 10, and he didn't necessarily love it either. So it's not one of those things where we just pick movies we both like.
Yeah.
There's been movies where like we did Batman Returns, and we both didn't want to reveal this to each other because we didn't want to break the other one's heart. But then we both at the same time, sort of like Step Brothers, on the count of 3 go, we were both like, it wasn't as good as we remember it being, So we have like that. It's not all those like you agree on everything.
Yeah.
But it does, no matter what, it builds your appreciation for a movie, whether it's how it was made or what the actors have been doing since, or just that movie in general. And it's just a lot of fun to talk 100%. Movies. Yeah.
Could not agree more. All right. Another question here. Let's see. Jared put this in the chat twice. I want to bring this up. Can we talk about the forgotten gen of fans, the special edition kids that turned 9, 10, and 11 in 97?
I mean, that was sort of me. Like I was 14 when the special edition came out, and I've always loved Star Wars. Like my dad showed me Empire it was just on TV on a Saturday afternoon, and it was the scene where Luke goes to confront Vader. And I remember just it feeling different, and they asked my dad about who Luke Skywalker was and stuff, and I was only like 5. And I always really liked Star Wars, but when the special editions came out, and like we were talking about, the theater experience, for me, it was like the closest I could get to when you hear people older than us talking about seeing the original in the theaters, because I was like, And I'd seen the movie before, but it was just different, man. And that vaulted me to super fandom. So I feel like I'm sort of one of those kids. I did all the Power of the Force figures, like all that's the crappy lightsabers that extend out,
Oh, I had 2 of those growing up too.
Yeah, exactly. That all that stuff, and that's all part of like the nostalgia of that era. So, and I like the special editions. There's some changes that I'm like, I don't know about that, but so I'm one of those kids. So I don't know if that we're forgotten, but I think as more and more Star Wars is made, the that palette expands and there's less to just focus on. When those movies came out, it was still just those 3 movies.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we're forgotten. So don't worry, Jared. We're all still here. We're all still loving it. And you're in the chat talking with us. So we're still here, man.
Yeah, he adds, I was 11 in 97 and watched them in the theater, changed my life.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I actually have, I don't know if they're the special editions. You can't see them, but I have the original trilogy on VHS that sit behind here. They do not move. I'm a little younger, so I'm what's called a prequel baby. Yeah. I remember the special editions. Like I obviously watched them when I was younger, but the prequels is kind of where my jam was as a kid. I don't remember watching episode 1 or 2 in the theater, but I remember watching episode 3, which is such a bummer because I would love to have those experiences. But I remember going in from my hometown, the mall theater, when theaters were in a mall. It was a mall theater, and we watched episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith, and I'll never forget that experience. I definitely think that over time, as the more and more in Star Wars goes out, it's not that you just kind of get forgotten. It's just that there's just so much happening that it just kind of gets pushed off a little bit, and then eventually it'll kind of come back. It's like a giant rotating circle. It really is a giant rotating circle.
A real quick story about Phantom Menace. So back in the day, you used to have to just physically go buy your tickets. Mm-hmm. And they released the tickets for Phantom Menace the week before, and it was a Wednesday. And me and my buddies all, like some of them, I don't think I had my license yet, but a couple of my buddies did. And we skipped school and we went to our theater and camped out. It was a like May 10th or whatever it was. And it was like 95 degrees out in May.
Oh my God.
And we're just out there just getting like roasted and we're just sitting out there. My sister drove by like, you guys are freaking nerds. We're like, you shut up. And I'll never forget that because it's like, there's certain things that are gone now, like video stores, all these things that like these cool experiences, toy stores are pretty much gone, and just being able to be there and talk to fellow Star Wars fans. And like Conan O'Brien had Triumph go out and harass fans who were waiting in line for tickets on his show. And like, I got to experience that. And that's so cool. And then we went in and I'm like, one for Phantom Menace for next week. And I got my ticket in my hand and I remember keeping that stub and going to see it the next week. And I loved the Phantom Menace when it came out. Like Jar Jar, whatever. Like, I was probably too old to like love Jar Jar. But I remember just seeing Darth Maul and that lightsaber duel and the music, like it blew me away. So, I'm not a prequel baby, but I have a warm place in my heart for the prequels, especially, it was really George Lucas's swan song. So
I unfortunately don't have an experience of camping out. I wish I did.
You got to bring it back.
Yeah, like I don't know how my parents got tickets, but they might have gone to the theater, or maybe we just got lucky day of, because I grew up in a little bit of a smaller town. I didn't grow up in like Long Island or anything, so it wasn't as crazy. Yeah, I wish I did have that kind of experience. And I always go back to and I don't know if you've seen it, but the movie Fanboys.
Oh, dude, yeah.
At the very end when they're camping out for episode 1, I wish I had that type of experience with my buddies, sitting around, hanging out while they're waiting for the movie. Because now it's just like you go on, you click an app, you buy your ticket, and it's done for you.
Pick your seat,
reclining chairs, the whole thing. Like it's a whole luxury experience, and there is something special about having to go to the theater, having to have printing out tickets, like ripping the ticket, the whole thing.
Yeah, saving seats for your buddies.
Oh, that was always fun. Trying to tell people to go away. No, this is our seat. You go sit somewhere else.
I mean, today, if that was still the situation, you just like sneeze or cough a couple times, and then you're fine.
Right? Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call. All right. Well, let's get to some rapid fire questions here before we kind of close out the show. I got 15 of them, and they are quick answers, as quick as you can be. right off the top of your head. You can take a little time if you need to, but they are very quick. If you're ready to go, I'm ready to ask these babies.
I'm not ready, but let's go.
All right. One planet you'd love to live on.
Scarif.
Favorite piece of Star Wars merchandise you have.
Oh, this DL44 replica of the DL44 from Solo that one of our listeners sent me because I kept saying I wanted one.
Wow. That's gorgeous. Oh my God.
Just such a nice guy. He just sent it to me.
That's amazing. Wow. One character we need to see more of.
Oh, well, obviously Han Solo, but oh, geez. I will say, man, that's tough. Oh, Salacious Crumb. Come on, let's go.
That's a good call. There's a chance we see him. There's
I know,
one character we need to see less of.
People are gonna get mad at me, but the clones, the clone troopers.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Razor Crest or modified N1.
Razor Crest.
Okay. Favorite Star Wars faction or group?
Wow. This is going like when it comes to factions and groups, like it's probably not the most popular choice, but they've been growing on me, and they're going to grow on me more when I see Ahsoka. I'm going to say the Ghost Crew.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Clone Wars or Rebels?
Rebels.
Okay. Saddest Star Wars death?
Oh, man, that's really tough. I'm going to go with Padme.
That's a good one. Nobody has answered with Padme on this show yet.
Oh, really?
I
think it's because I'm a dad, and I saw my wife, give birth.
Well, in the way that it happens is very tragic.
Yes, yeah, she didn't really get to spend any time with her kids. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's very sad. Is Jar Jar Binks the Sith Lord?
No. If they did, I'd be like, whatever.
One, and I don't know if you know about this or not, but one Legends character you hope we see in canon one day.
Oh boy. How about Prince Zizor?
All right. Favorite Star Wars creature?
Now is this like non-sentient?
Yeah. Something we've seen in Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's tough. That is really tough. Oh jeez. I love so many creatures. That is really, really tough one. Let's wrap that back around at the end.
Okay. Favorite lightsaber hilt?
I'm gonna go with Obi-Wan's from like his last one, which modified into Luke's, I guess, in terms of like life.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Han's DL44 or Mando's pulse rifle?
Oh yeah, I mean the pulse rifle is really cool, but I gotta go with the DL44, man. Wow, such a cowboy.
All right, fair enough. Star Wars movies or TV series?
Movies.
Okay. Greatest Jedi to ever live?
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Oh, yeah, I love that answer. Star Wars creature. Favorite Star Wars creature?
Oh man, I want to say the Anzellans.
They're so good.
Yeah, well, after that Mando episode, I was laughing so freaking hard. Shirley Henderson's voice is just so damn good, and the puppeteering and how Jim Henson it felt.
Yep, it's so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with them for. I know it's very your recency, but I'm gonna go with them for now.
I think it's a great answer. A great answer, and I love that they're getting involved more, which is cool too. So,
yeah, exactly.
I love seeing them.
Yeah.
Well, John, this has been an absolute treat.
That was the quickest hour of my life.
I know. It was very quick. I appreciate you coming on and talking.
I gotta finish my glass.
Star Wars and baseball and chat, asking all these questions. We really, really appreciate it. Before we head out of here, feel free to plug anything that you want to that maybe anybody watching has not know. I'm sure they do know, but just in case, go and do a shout out for yourself.
So the Resistance broadcast, my Star Wars podcast with James Vaney and Lacey Gillerin. We are on twice a week. Usually it's Mondays and Thursdays, but if there's a Star Wars show on, we do Wednesday nights, the day they air. We have the Mando fan show going on right now, live on Wednesday nights at 8:30 East. And TRB can be found on all podcast apps. And we just started a new YouTube channel a couple months ago, so we're trying to get that built up. We're trying to just pass Star Wars Explained, so we're only 800,000 away. So, but yeah, so youtube.com/@the-resistance-broadcast. Love Alex and Molly, you know that. And the podcast is on all podcast apps, and we're on social media at TRB Podcast, and we're starting to do shorts, so we're also on TikTok and all that stuff.
Been doing that. I've been seeing those.
Yeah. I did my indie one, and James edited it all nice for me because I'm a tech dinosaur. But
yeah.
And then for me on Twitter, I don't take it too seriously. So if you like people who joke around and talk about Star Wars and baseball, and basically what Jake and I have been doing here, at Johnny Hoey, and that's really the main social media you can find me on. And Just Like the Movies, my movie podcast with my best friend Mike on all podcast apps. And if you are going to Celebration in London, we just found out when our podcast is. So we are podcasting from Celebration this year, which is really cool. Yeah. Last year,
congratulations.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're doing it at the convention on Sunday, April 9th, London time, 11 a.m. We're going to try to stream it so everybody can watch it if they can't make the Celebration, because we know not everyone can go.
That would be 3 a.m. West Coast time.
Yeah. So either have a few of these and stay up. But
I'll try my best.
yeah. So we're doing that. If you're going to Celebration, 11 a.m. London time. They said room 17, whatever it is. But we're doing a full hour podcast. We always try to make those fun for everybody, and we'll be at Celebration. So if you see us, come hang out and say hi. But yeah, so the Resistance broadcast is my heart, and I love it. And we also have a Patreon, of course, but. More importantly, just if you like a good time, we like to have fun. Star Wars is still fun, and but we love it just the same. So those are my plugs.
No, yeah, and all the streams or links are in the description. Everybody,
so
Jake, they're all down there.
You are a pros pro, my man.
I got you. I know that you guys started the new YouTube channel, so I want to make sure the link is there for you guys.
Thank you, dude.
I'm super jealous that I'm not going to be joining this time at Celebration. I was able to go last year.
2025 maybe,
hopefully 2025. Yeah, I'm not able to make it all the way across to London, but I hope you guys have a fantastic time. Hopefully I'm able to watch live during the stream and supporting you guys again. John, thank you so much for joining me on this. This has been an absolute blast, so thank you again.
Yeah, they always say you're having a good time when it flies by, so but make sure you tell where your dogs, Kylo, right? And
Kylo and Ray, they're sitting right here.
Kylo and Ray. So yeah, Give them my best, and Gabby, of course. And I'm glad that you're well, and we got to talk again soon because this was too quick, buddy. But thanks for having me.
I plan on having you back for sure.
I'm glad to be an honorary whiskey Jedi with you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right,
buddy. To everybody watching, thank you guys so much. Hope you guys stay safe out there. Be well. Check out everything that I got going on. It's all in the description. You guys know the links for me usually, so I appreciate it. And until next time, may the Force be with you.